to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
Well, welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. My name is Tom Dutta, and I am the Quiet Warrior. And I'm excited to have on my show today Denise Wozniak. Denise, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tom. It's great to be here.
Well, it's great to have you here. And I usually don't start the show off chuckling, but I got to tell you that I'm probably going to laugh a bit during this interview because you've got a great personality. We were just joking about the name Wozniak, but I want to just start off, Denise, by saying, so our audience knows how we met, because it's to honor part of your story. So, I was sitting in a darkened studio called Blue Frog Studios, and there was this woman on the stage, and she was speaking, and it got my heart. And it was you, and you were doing a rehearsal for a TEDx talk, and I believe that's going to be featured now online. And I remember after that, I said, I've got to reach out and talk to you, and you've got to come on my radio show because it's about heroism. And well, here you are. So why don't we just turn it to you first and to tell us a bit about yourself?
Well, Tom, I'm from England. Surprise. No surprise there. Yeah. I grew up in England. I left England when I was 20 years old and came to Canada. My mother was originally from Canada. And when she divorced my father, she came back. And so that was a great opportunity because I had been here when I was a little girl. Couldn't wait to get to Canada. I loved Canada. And from then onwards, I've just had a pretty interesting life. I love Canada. I absolutely kiss the ground I walk on here.
That's fantastic. And, I'd like to get a picture of that. You're making me smile again, because just yesterday I was doing an interview with an athlete and who won a gold medal, and believe it or not, when they won the gold medal, they put the flag down, the Canadian flag, on the mat because it was a wrestling match, and actually ran around it and kissed the flag. So it took me back in my mind.
Well, Tom, I just got to tell you this quickly, that what I did do is once when I was in England, Air Canada went on strike, and I kid you not, I was in full panic attack that I would not be able to get back.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that nugget. And so what I'm going to do is build you up a bit. There's greatness behind you. I mean, my show is about authentic people who don't have egos. And so I'm going to brag about you for a minute. And so you were born, as you said, in England, in Reading, England. And, I have a big heart for England. I was born in a place not far from you there before I came to Canada. And today you reside in your home here in British Columbia, and with your husband and your two dogs. But it goes even further. You've done a lot with your career. You're a speaker, a writer, certified speaking coach, and you love photography, which I learned. And something you wrote which caught my attention, you wrote, "It's too easy to fall into the trap of linking our identities to our illnesses," which really got me excited to know more about your story. And then, of course, the TEDx. And the last thing I want to say, which is really an honor, is you were awarded the Queen Elizabeth II Gold and Diamond Jubilee medals for your charitable work, which is a part of the story. You're also a co-author of the United Nations booklet, How to Include Children Infected and Affected by HIV in Your NGO Network. Before I turn it back to you, let me just throw out three words: HIV, AIDS, PTSD, depression. And so your story is amazing because not only have you been successful, but those three things were weaved into your story as personal experiences. So, Denise, I'm going to give it to you now and get us into that hero's journey story. Take us way back and tell us more.
Well, Tom, I really had all I could want in life. I've got to say, I had a fantastic marriage. I had a little girl, 4 months old. I was looking at, 5 months old. I was looking after at home. My little Katie, who doesn't love babies? I mean, of course, mine was perfect looking. Yeah. Not many are, but mine was. And I had a great job. I just got a job at a school district. I used to work at Ernst & Young International, and it was perfect life. We just built a house, and what could be better? And within the space of 3 months, everything was torn apart. First of all, I was laid off my job with 30 other employees, which was difficult, to say the least. I was on maternity leave at the time.
Yeah.
And then within a month, I found out that my daughter got extremely sick and had pneumonia and was rushed to Children's Hospital intensive care. And we found out one day, they called us when I just got home from the hospital and told me that they'd had some blood tests back, and in fact, Katie had AIDS.
Oh my.
And it was, I cannot even tell you, that was absolutely the worst moment of my life.
Yeah.
It was a huge shock. Had no idea. And from that, we were called in to get tested. My husband was not infected, and I had HIV, and my daughter was confirmed to have AIDS. I found out that I'd had 3 relationships my whole life, up until I was 29, and got infected by a boyfriend before I met my husband.
Oh dear.
It was people say, oh, promiscuous people get this, or gay people get this. They have no idea. I mean, it doesn't choose who it infects.
No, absolutely. I want to just jump in there.
Sad.
Denise, I want to just jump in there. First of all, to honor you. I mean, my heart's growing here, and the courage. Thank you for the courage to share that part of your story. I don't think, unless people have been through that, they can even put themselves in your shoes. I'm sorry for the loss of Katie. It sounds like she was quite the amazing little soul, and so to put us back into the journey. Oh my gosh! What you've said to us is that your daughter at 5 months got sick and then was diagnosed with AIDS, and you were laid off from your job, and you discovered you were also diagnosed with the same. So here we are at this moment in time in your story. I can tell you most people may not make it further, but you did. So take us back and make it real. Tell us what you did and how all that felt.
Yeah, well, what happened was I was actually told she might live 2 years, and she, in fact, started getting sick as soon as she got home and died 3 months later. And I was told I might live 5 years, and I thought, woohoo, I might live 5 years. I mean, it was a good thing at the time. You thought you were going to die right away.
Yeah.
And 2 years later, all the medication came out, and that was amazing. But in the meantime, I came back from the funeral. We had her funeral out in Ontario, buried her with her grandmother. We came back and found these bills all waiting for us, and I had been mistakenly cut off all my insurance.
Yeah.
I was meant to be on the insurance still, and I'd been cut off. So, long story short, it was a terrible, terrible time. Obviously, what I found next was the stigma was so terrible. They told her at the hospital, they said, be very careful who you tell, because this is 1994.
Yeah.
And they said, people won't understand like you think they will. I didn't even tell my mom and dad for 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, they thought she died of pneumonia.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, they had no idea I was infected. And then friends, we told a very few friends. And eventually we got to the stage where I thought, you know what? I'm becoming part of the stigma. I am encouraging this stigma because people have no idea families are getting this, and they need to know how you get it and that anybody could get it.
Yeah.
The actual ways of getting it, not thinking you sit on a toilet seat or kiss somebody and you get it. So I decided at that point in time, I was approached by a journalist. Actually, the society I was with, the Women's Society, was approached by a journalist and asked if somebody would do an interview, and I decided I would. And at that time, it got released in the newspaper.
Was that still close to 1994? I'm just trying to get a sense.
It was 1996, right at the World AIDS Conference. They were looking for a story on a woman.
Okay.
And I decided I would. Yeah.
Yeah. Before you keep going there, I just wanted to say something, because you took me on a journey in my mind there that this word stigma is so important. And so to honor the courage of you to step out, I mean, if I go back to even some of the movies we've seen about AIDS, the Tom Hanks movie and all, it's so hard to watch. And in the work that I do, volunteering in the area of mental health, the word stigma exists in so many areas. And it takes somebody to start a conversation and start the education process. So, keep going. Tell us more.
Yeah, I actually believe that stigma is a wrong word. I think it is bullying. Sorry, but I think it is. And people,
Wow.
I think we've hidden behind this word stigma for a long time. And it's not okay to treat people like that. It's just not okay.
Well, you got me going again. Let me just let me just say this, because it's the first time I've ever heard that. And you know what? It's probably something that's in my subconscious mind wanting to come out. I agree. There's other words I've heard that other people talk about shame and but bullying, there's no question. I've known people who have struggled with certain issues, and it feels just that way. So keep going. Keep telling us more.
Okay, yeah. So after that, when I did that interview, it really did take a life of its own. It went national, and I decided at that point that it would be a very good thing to link other families together, because I knew how difficult it was to talk to other people who were in the same position as me. And I felt that it would be good to have parents come together and be able to discuss their children. And some of them were grandparents. Their children had died and they were looking after their grandchildren.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be a good thing to have this group where children and parents could come together and families come together and be able to be in a safe environment where they could discuss that. And I set out to look for a name for the group, and eventually I came across a little Indigenous artist box. It was like a little collectible box, and on the top there was a hummingbird, and I thought, oh, this looks interesting. I opened it up, and inside was a note that said, when a hummingbird comes into your life at times of great sorrow, happiness and healing will soon follow.
Wow.
And I thought, that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's a perfect name. And so I called it the Hummingbird Kids Society.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really nice. And it was a bit vague, so people didn't know what it was, which I couldn't call it the Children with AIDS Society, right? It would have been pretty obvious.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. We formed that society, and I have to say, full marks to the Vancouver Canucks. Like we were invited to sit in their box at games with no kudos to them, because we couldn't credit companies who gave us things, go on TV and say thank you, because it would identify us.
Yeah.
And other companies that stepped up, Disney gave us amazing toys for the kids. You would be amazed at the companies that came forward to help us with that, with no recognition at all. It was very inspiring that they did that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a credit to you, Denise. And so I wanted to ask you something as you continue that, I hear it's quite obvious to me. We hear it in your voice. There's passion, there's positiveness. And the reality is that most people go through these situations, or sometimes I call it living in quiet desperation. They find it hard to get up in the morning and be positive. And it's very rare to find somebody who goes through trauma like this and loves themselves first. I know that is a hard every day for people like yourself. I know you've had to develop that and work through it. You talked about in something I read having experience with depression and PTSD. So just give us, because the people listening to my show are average people up to leaders who run companies, and many of them have events in their life. But just give us anything that you can share about how you've maintained throughout this journey that positive focus, which led you to doing something great like starting that society.
Well, I think when you see injustice, that you put up with it for so long before you have to do something, and even if it comes at a personal cost, you need to do something about it.
Yeah,
I personally feel that. Now, I just want to say that there are some people who can't, and I truly honor those people, because not everybody can do that. I think I went through 2 years of not being able to do it. I turned down interviews, all kinds of things, before I finally thought, I've got to stop this. But that probably, and I hate to say it, but it's probably the English in me or the British in me. Like, we're kind of stubborn people, and we're very opinionated. And so I find that, I couldn't help it. I just thought, I've got to do something, and I don't even care, right? So that's how that came about. However, I will say that I was still in the depths of depression at that time. I had terrible nightmares from PTSD.
Yeah.
And I was not out of depression at that time. And in fact, I think it could have, I have to say kudos to some other people who ran the organization for free. We didn't have a single paid worker, and all the money went to the kids.
Yeah.
But beyond that, you're asking me about how do you get out of depression. I started to think to myself, on a level of 1 to 10, how bad is this situation I'm going through now? Now, you may think a 10 would be finding out your child has AIDS. Not for me. For me, a 10 was having your child abducted and never knowing where that child was would be a 10. I cannot imagine anything worse than that.
Wow.
And then I graded everything from that. And so if I had a day where my tire got a puncture in it, then I would think, this is a 2. This is nothing, right? And so once you start doing that, you get a grip on what's real in life, I think, I believe.
I remember that now from your bio. I wanted to just read this piece of it. It said, she examines how we can rate and time our worrying during the day. And that's exactly what you just said. And I was trying to figure out in my mind, what did you mean by that? But I mean, that's brilliant. And I want to add to that because it's such a great teaching moment for people that, that joy is one of the pathways to overcoming mental health wellness challenges. I know this because I've spent a decade in that field and experienced it in my life with others. And I learned a long time ago, Denise, which I think you've shared with us, that people, plants and animals can't do this, but the human beings are the only creature that can attach a different meaning to a thought. Imagine that. You can attach a different meaning to a thought. So if you can take the loss of a child or these circumstances and attach it, find that purpose and that different meaning and then anchor that. And that's what you've done here, which is so courageous and amazing to me in your story. So tell us, as we move to the last little bit here with you, and we'll definitely have you back again. Tell us, now when you are doing your creativity, your photography, just tell us how you find your joy every day. What wakes you up and gets you going?
Well, I finally realized that I was getting way too attached to me being Ms. HIV and Ms. PTSD. I thought, I'm really starting to become these illnesses. And eventually, a friend of mine took me out photographing in Calgary in -24, looking for a snowy owl, which we did find. My picture is not near as good as hers, but I finally thought, this life is absolutely beautiful. I mean, I started taking just pictures with my cell phone of, say, a dandelion, a weed, right? And there's an ant crawling up it. How beautiful. I mean, we like dandelion clocks and that, but I started actually to take a few pictures of dead roses because I thought dead roses are really actually pretty amazing when they're dying. They look very beautiful. And sometimes we think that things that are dying are not beautiful, and they are. I mean, I look around, eventually, of course, the hummingbird to me was a symbol of beauty. And finally, my husband and I broke up after 18 years together, and he still wasn't infected. And I was actually on my own after that, and I thought, I'm okay on my own. I actually feel quite confident on my own. And I did not intend on meeting the next person, which was at a wedding. And we met, and on our first date in his garden, I saw the garden was full of hummingbirds. I thought, oh my gosh, I have to get a picture of this hummingbird. And by that time, some really nice people had given me a camera, And I bought a lens at a garage sale, and I set out to get a picture. And I finally did. And the way I did it was to look at where the hummingbird was, and I kept taking pictures of it on that flower. And I thought, no, I've got to focus on where the hummingbird could be. And then I thought, oh my gosh, that is such a great life lesson, to stop thinking about where you are and think about where you could be.
Wow.
And start thinking about who you used to be, the funny person, the person who laughs, right? And the person who looks around and really appreciates this world. And okay, we have some terrible things going on in it right now, but how long are we going to think about that during the day? And
wow.
how is it impacting us right now?
Well, you've just given us so much there, so much learning. It's incredible, and so proud of you. I mean, this thing you just said about, you painted a picture of the hummingbird and the photography. But you know what's interesting? When you listen to this radio show back, and when people listen to it, I want to challenge everybody to do this. Listen to it again, and listen to the part where Denise is talking about the difficult parts of her life, and then listen to the part where she talks about her joy of photography. You know, the inflection in your voice, the feeling I have, physiology and everything changed in my body and my mind when you got me thinking about something that was a positive thought versus something that was negative. And that's the power within you that you're spreading, the power within everybody of being through difficult times that is so hard to get, and yet you mastered it. That is awesome. I have another question for you, and then we'll move to wrap up. We'll give you the last word. And Denise, now that I've known you a bit and got to know your story, if I met you on the street after we chatted and I said, so, you know, what's your purpose on the planet? What were you put here to do? What might you say?
I don't feel I have a future purpose, although, well, I feel that to live every day and appreciate what we have. I mean, we are so incredibly lucky where we are. And I would say for the future, just to spread that message and hope that people will start looking around them and believe that the future can be better.
Well, that's brilliant. I love that. Thank you so much. I'm going to go back and listen to that. So, Denise, as I'm doing my shows, you'll know this, that I write down words. These are leadership words. I don't script it. It's based on what I hear from you, the guest, and you. And so I'm going to tell you that there's a few words here. One is courage. There's no question. You are the picture of courage. Creativity, which is part of you, and gratitude. That last piece, living in this attitude of gratitude, something we all can learn. So why don't you tell us where people can get a hold of your body of work, find out more about anything, the society, your TEDx talk, and also tell us what the names of your two dogs are.
Well, first of all, I'll go with the names of the dogs because that's the part I like the most. So my two dogs are Ziggy, after Ziggy Stardust. He's a Doberman. And my other dog is Nellie, after my Aunt Nellie, who was my cherished aunt who died.
There you go. Awesome.
And she's a standard poodle.
Awesome.
But, all right. So where they can get a hold of me, my website is www.Denise, Denise, Wozniak, Wozniak. I have to spell it because my English accent.com. And I will be on a TEDx upcoming, which is great. The society, I should tell you, achieved its purpose, which was to have no more children come in the door. However, we have passed our children on to a group called Camp Moomba, Moomba, and they are an amazing group who take children to camp every year.
Wow.
And children who either have HIV in their families or who do have HIV.
Wow, that is amazing. Thank you for sharing all of that. I'm sure people can connect with you and look into it. And it's just been an absolute pleasure having you on this show. And I want to tell you that I'm going to dedicate this show, not only the great work you're doing, but to Katie. How about that?
Oh, thank you. And it's been my absolute pleasure to talk to you, Tom. You're a gift.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, listen, everybody, find that true passion like Denise did. Live with that purpose and live life that you deserve and desire.
Thank you for listening to The Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca